I believe the Reverend Patricia Downing is going to offer our opening prayer this morning.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we are grateful for those who dedicate their lives to serve our community in a variety of ways. Help us to see that we are brothers and sisters one to another, that what affects one affects all, and that we do make a difference. Help us, open our eyes, open our hearts to see you at work in the world around us. Give us the strength and courage and will to be about real, creative, peaceful change in this city. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Patty. We appreciate that prayer, and really you talked about the work, the genuine work, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the fact that when we talk about peace, we really have to recognize the fact that first we all have to be in peace and unity with one another, and really have that loving brotherhood and sisterhood. This is real work that we're doing here. So I just want us to, that was a beautiful prayer, so thank you for opening us up with it. We've really been leading this work as the movement for a culture of peace since September of last year. On September 27th, we had an amazing movement of people, but like we said on that day, this movement did not start with us. We have some great organizations and a coalition, about 60 individuals and agencies that we've reached out, not only citywide but statewide. Our children and what's happening in our streets here in Wilmington and well beyond, Newcastle, Middletown, and down even farther. We're all one family, and when we're talking about what's happening in this community, the first thing that we recognize is, you know, this is not a black community issue that we're talking about. This is an issue of humanity. It's an issue of our broader American community and our children as Delawareans. So we really come here as one to really develop not one solution, but put together one like mind to develop multiple creative solutions. And that's really what the movement for a culture of peace is. So if some of you have been here before, this is our 5th convening. I think our first one was in November. We meet on a monthly basis. It's usually on a Saturday morning. We usually have a really full crowd and a pretty diverse crowd, but we would love for you to work together. We have a Facebook page, so you'll have, you have a lot of our information, including the next one that's coming up on April the 3rd. So the first thing I want to say is sometimes we look around the room and we ask ourselves, why aren't there more of this people here? Why aren't those people? This would be a great person to have, not only in the audience, but here on the panel. So there's several very informed individuals of all ages in our community. And just speaking on behalf of the movement for a culture of peace, this is an inclusive movement. We want to know your ideas. What do you want to be more informed about? What do you think the community is being misinformed about? Who do you think is great representation for the community? And who do you want to hear from? Let us know. Jeff is sitting at the table, George, Madar, June, the peacekeepers, a lot of us are here. So please share that information with us. There is going to be one other announcement, and Reverend David Andrews, I think, wants to go ahead and do that first about another piece of this movement that's coming up. So, Reverend David.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Holy Week begins on March 29th, and that week there will be actually 2 events. Last year, Trinity Episcopal Parish and SAM both organized and participated in Urban Stations of the Cross. Trinity's was on Wednesday, and this year Patty's Wednesday as well at 6 o'clock. And on Good Friday, the one for St. Andrew and Matthew will be, and that's why I'm here too, because the peacekeepers and all you are invited to participate. The theme of our stations this year is going to be My Brothers and Sisters Keeper. We'll be starting at the Hicks Anderson Center at 3:15, and then we will be walking 6 stations between 7th and Monroe and 7th and Washington, and ending up at SAM at 4:30, where we will finish with prayers and petitions on 3 crosses you'll be able to use to nail your prayers on. There'll be meditations and prayers, and the SAM adult choir will be singing spirituals at every station. So I invite you to participate at either the Trinity one on Wednesday at 6 or the SAM one at Hicks Anderson. Be there at 3 o'clock, and we'll begin at 3:15.
Thank you, Reverend David, and you can see Reverend David or June for more information throughout the event. Okay, so we want to move this forward. As I asked each member of the panel and spoke to them as we came in, I said, hey, what is it that you really want to get out of today? And each of them said, we want to hear, we want to listen, we want to hear what the community has to say. And I said, well, they want to hear and listen to what you have to say, so hopefully we'll meet in the middle and kind of really have a meaningful dialogue, and I want to get started. And something that really moves me, which it's a testament to you all having got up so early on a Saturday morning in the cold to be here with us. And I want to just recognize and acknowledge you for being here. A quote by Dr. Martin Luther King says that the greatest tragedy that history will have to record of this time of social transition was not the callous clamor of the bad people, but the appalling silence of the good people. We encourage you not to be silent today. And as the good people are here that are doing some really good work, we want to share that dialogue. My name is Chandra Pitts. I'm the president and CEO of One Village Alliance. I'm honored to be here as a part of the culture of peace, and also with some other individuals who are now going to take 1 to 3 minutes and introduce yourselves. And again, this is going to be a really powerful and informed dialogue throughout the day. We will start with Chief Cummings, who is here from the Wilmington Police Department.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm not going to take a lot of time in speaking up front, but again, I will tell you that I'm a 30-year police officer. I'm invested in the city because I was basically raised in the city. I'm concerned with all the issues that are occurring here in terms of the violence that is occurring, and I hope to have a informative discussion as we continue after today.
Thank you. We have Richard Doug Ardella, Public Safety Liaison for the City of Wilmington.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. This is the second event like this that I've attended. It's, you know, I think it's very important that we all have these type of informal discussions. You get to hear about all the different initiatives that we're involved in, and we get to hear what the concerns of the community are. I work directly out of the mayor's office, so I'm between the mayor's office and the police department, and I'm involved in a lot of issues, but primarily one of the biggest focuses of what I do is dealing with this VRN, which is the Violence Reduction Network. And as you all know, Wilmington has been selected as one of the 5 cities that the Department of Justice is devoted to working with. The other 4 cities are Oakland, California, Detroit, Chicago, and Camden. The commitment is a 2-year commitment. It doesn't come with money, but what it does come with literally is them rolling out the red carpet so that we can get to the funding and that we can get to the opportunities for training, opportunities for you know, technology advancements and things of that nature, and that's currently what we're working on. Right out of the gate, there were 4 things that we wanted to focus on. One is to have a total assessment of our technologies to see where we are with those in relationship to other police departments. We had experts come in to do a total assessment of how we do crime analysis. And you know, based on the recommendations that are in, there's more work to be done, but obviously there's a lot of work that we need to do with the crime analysis piece. We're also doing a staffing evaluation where we're looking at our current deployment strategies to see what the rank structure looks like and to see if we're operating at, you know, our ultimate efficiency level. And we've also just recently finished a total assessment of our Criminal Investigative Division unit, and we're waiting for the results of that. So they'll come back with some recommendations, and that really is where the work will be, is to implement, these recommendations. So I look forward to hearing what the people have to say today, and again, it's a pleasure to be here.
And next we have DARRYL Wolfie Chambers, who's here with the Wilmington Public Safety Strategies Commission.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Actually, I wear many hats throughout the city, throughout Newcastle County, in the state of Delaware. But today, I come here as a concerned citizen, as a person who lost a child to the violence in Wilmington. My main concentration right now is how do you mend a tense relationship? And the relationship that I'm talking about is the relationship between the black and brown community and the Wilmington Police Department. So my main focus is what kind of concerns should we be addressing in order to bridge that gap of trust within our inner city and our Wilmington Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Mr. David Thomas, Senior Research Fellow with the Police Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning.
I've met with the chief. I've met with DARRYL, and today is the first time I met with Mr. IARDELLA. My role is actually, I'm a part of the commission that the chief and DARRYL sit on that the governor appointed. And I'm one of the consultants. The Police Foundation is a consulting group. Our primary responsibility is threefold. We have to look at the community as a whole and some of the issues in relationship to the department and the community. We're looking at the financial resources that the department has and how they utilize those. And then third, we're looking at the actual deployment or hotspots and what needs to be done in relationship to addressing those problems. So we have three primary areas. The other group is called VRI, and they're doing a complete assessment of the agency and deployment issues and looking at that from a different perspective to see how the agency can best serve you. So I'm here to listen. And I do mean listen. And people have asked me, how do you know what you say gets back to the people that really matters? It's because as a group, the Police Foundation, our group, has never been stifled, and our bosses don't believe in holding us back. And we write what you tell us, and we make the recommendations based on those things. Now, what we try to do is we support the arguments with research. So if another agency is doing it, then we will take that research to support and say, hey, you need to look at this because this will make a change. This will help you do something better. And so we will find ways, and that's really the goal, find ways to try to mitigate some of the issues that are here. And so I'm here to listen, but if you got questions for me, I'm also here to answer those questions if I can. Okay? Thank you.
It's always the disclaimer, if I can. He's going to answer our questions. So thank you all. We have a really rich and informed panel. You all had index cards on your seats. There's definitely plenty more. If you could just hold them in the air if you have a question, and someone from the Culture of Peace will come around and grab those from you. And again, really holistic base of information that we have here, so we're open to all of your questions and your comments. At this time, I want to invite Marcia Carter, who's also a part of the coalition, and also to let you all know that we meet every Tuesday in the afternoon. You can come in or join us. We usually meet around 12 noon. So again, this is a really inclusive movement. So Marcia has some questions. Again, just hold your cards up, put your questions down. If you have one or two or more than one, we'll try to get those answered and maybe have some time for open comment at the end, but we want to get everybody's questions in. So, Marcia.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We really do want those questions, so if you have them, please hold them up. Do we have any now that are ready? You do? Okay. Okay. And we have some pens. Let's just take 1 second. There's some pens. If you need a pen, please raise your hand. Let's get that out really quickly so people can ask the questions. Some of the questions that we have really kind of piggyback off their meeting at the commission on March, I believe it's March the last one, I'm sorry, I forgot, at the Walnut Street Y. So the first one I'm going to ask is there a single agreed upon definition of community policing? Yes, we can start with Chief Cummings.
I believe there is a...
Oh.
I don't have the answer to you, or for you, exactly right now, but there is a definition of community policing. But also understand that community policing varies from community to community, and what we term to be the community. I know this is getting not directly to the answer, but community policing in terms of I'll give you what I believe community policing is. Community policing is when the community and the police department has a relationship where there are levels of trust that have been built and communication is freely shared among those two entities. So when you talk in terms of community policing in the city of Wilmington, we believe that we have begun a dialogue and we have established a relationship that communication does occur. Does it occur as often as we'd like? Probably not. However, we have opened up the dialogue and we've opened up ourselves to having these type of communications. And this format right here is one realm of community policing. So I don't know that I truly answered your question, but there is some research that will give you a specific definition of community policing, but it can, again, it can vary from neighborhood to neighborhood.
I concur with what Chief Cummings said, but sometimes the best way to get a grasp of a definition is by talking about its opposite. So let's talk about what is not community policing. What is not community policing is systematically targeting people within that community to lock them up. For instance, and another thing is that you cannot automatically call police walking around the neighborhood community policing, because from a person with good intention, this could be called community policing, but from when you don't have buy-in from the community, it's called community occupation. So I think there's a fine line. I think that the most relevant word that you use, Chief Cummings, was the relationships. When you have buy-in from the community, and this is why the work of the commission is so important and for the community to participate, because when you have their buy-in, when you have their recommendations and their suggestions, then something as simple as something being viewed as community occupation become community policing when you have the buy-in. So when the community start to take ownership, that's when you will see community policing. Without that main component, you will not have community policing.
Thank you.
One of the things that we're trying to implement here is a situational policing model that fits with community policing. And basically what that is it's the police and the community working together to problem solve and to build relationships. You have to realize that each neighborhood has their own particular issues, their own needs. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all type of model, hence the name situational policing. The city brought in Dr. James Nolan, who really developed this model. He put a pilot program together in Browntown, and it became very successful. One of the things that we need to do is expand on that and take it to other neighborhoods.
I'll add another word, and I'll say partnership. And when everybody here has talked about a buy-in, the buy-in has to be from both groups. The officers have to buy in and be invested in the community, and the community has to buy in and understand that the officers are vested in their best interest. And they have to meet in the middle in order for this to be successful. Without that buy-in on both parts, it fails. Chief Cummings and I kind of talked about this earlier before this even started, and that is a major issue for everybody involved. And every place I've been, it's difficult, and officers want to be police. They don't kind of understand that the public is their, I'll say it quite frankly, that you're their customers. And in as much, that is the way they should be treated. There are times when the job is a bad job. There are times when this job is a very tough job. But if that buy-in is there, then the community understands that the officers have a job to do. So that is where the balance comes in. But I will take it, the word I like is partnership, because I think that is ultimately what it's all about. Without that, it's kind of a bust. Thank you.
How are these public safety community organizations interacting with the schools to ensure that more students are engaged in school and less with law enforcement?
You can stay seated and pass the mic if you want.
All right. I can't really speak for all the other agencies, but I'll tell you what the police department is doing. In terms of, as it relates to schools, we have officers that are assigned to a number of schools that are within the city who interact and engage with our students every single day. I will tell you that our staff, which includes from my rank down to my captains, we go out to the schools in the morning to greet the kids on a different level rather than meeting them on some negative situation. So as they come into the schools in the morning, well, again, we're just there to say hi, introduce ourselves, extend our hand so that they see us in a different light. We have our K-9 officers that go out to the schools when requested, and they perform demonstrations engaging with the kids on a positive level rather than when it becomes something of a negative nature. Not only that, you know, our kids have great questions that they always ask. And one of the things we are is open to answering their questions. And their questions are wide-ranging. And some of the things that you ask in these meetings, these kids are asking those same questions. They have the same concerns. They have the same issues. When they experience a negative situation, they want to know why, and they want to know, and they want positive answers. I'm not going to say that all the answers are always positive, but we will always tell them the truth. And sometimes those conversations are difficult, but we are willing to have them with those kids. Again, we try to keep them as positive as we can, but some of those questions they ask are deep. So again, we do engage with the kids from our standpoint.
Anyone want to answer the question? Everyone doesn't have to answer every question. Okay. All right, the next question is, there was a question regarding the cadets, like new cadets being mixed with the old ones, making sure they're not being influenced by them. So I guess I want to just kind of shift the question a little bit and ask, what training is offered to officers, do cadets and police officers, the vets, to ensure they have like this buy-in and they have this relationship with a positive relationship, not just locking up community members?
Do you mind if I stay down? No. Okay, so how our recruits get trained in the academy, we have about 22 weeks of classwork that they go through. And we have everything from community policing issues to how to deal with culture diversity issues. Again, a number of facets that they're going to have to be trained on and that they should understand. One thing that we do is we set the philosophy of how we expect them to be when they get on the street. We do put them with veteran officers. Sometimes even the veteran officers have ideologies that are not what we want to be put out. So what we do is with the recruits, they do not just sit with one particular officer. They are transferred around a number of officers during their FTO training. So they get a different perspective. So they're going to get some things that are negative. They're going to get some things that are positive. But we help guide them through what our expectations are. We don't send them out from their own understanding of what they perceive that they got in the academy. We make sure that we provide the leadership and direction of what we want to occur in the street. So that's one of the things that I've implemented, and our officers are trained on a regular basis. And I'm not going to tell you that every training that they go to that they agree with. That's, you know, that's not that's not what's happening. But we make sure that we bring up the issues and we discuss the issues and we talk about the issues. And we're not asking them to freely come along and agree with everything we say, because we want it to be challenging. We want them to be creative. We want them to be critical. Learn how to ask the questions when things don't, not necessarily go your way, but you have to have an understanding that there are different things out here that will affect people differently. And if you don't ask those questions, we don't challenge our officers, then we're just sending officers out to be robots and with no critical thinking measures at all. So I'm not going to tell you that everybody that has come through here has the same mindset. We don't. We have challenges, just as we do in the community. But we are working on those issues to make sure that from the leadership perspective, here are the guidelines that are being set out, here are the tasks, this is what we expect you to do, and when you don't do those things, we hold you accountable. So these are things that we're looking at.
This one is to get away from the police chief, right? And this one is, are there any studies being conducted on the cultural, social, and economic problems that feed the violence? If so, what are they, and how do we begin to address those issues? It's really good. Yeah. And with that, Mike,
I'm sure a lot of the people in this room are aware that last summer the CDC came to Wilmington. There was a request made by City Council. The mayor then devoted resources and also requested the governor to make a formal request to CDC to have them come to Wilmington and take a look at the violence that was occurring here. What I'm told from the CDC is that it was the largest field study that they have ever done, looking at violence as an epidemic and a health issue. What they did was they looked at school records, they looked at medical records, they looked at obviously criminal records, and when they left here last summer, they met with City Council, they met with the mayor's office and leadership of the police department, and what they felt that they were going to be able to do was to literally develop a window that would indicate when someone would either be prone to be, based on these indicators, that they would be within the next 60 or 90 days either a victim or on the other side of the gun as a suspect. They're going to be coming here probably the end of this month or beginning of April with their final study. There's more work that they have to do with this. We're going to meet with the governor's office, and collectively we will develop a strategy based on the information that we learned from the CDC. So that's one of the examples of the studies that are being done here.
Doug, you have the resources to put in place the recommendations that the CDC may have. So I think that they're going to identify a sort of a prototype individual that is considered to be the high risk.
Right. I think there'll be a couple things that'll come from this, but without seeing the final product, what I believe we're going to see is basically what Sandra and I saw from this Coalition Caring that we're both a part of that deals with the homeless issues, and that is that there are agencies that provide services, but unfortunately they almost operate as silos, so they're not sharing information. In some cases, there are services that are being duplicated. And I think that we will find that with this study, and it'll be, so to answer your question, I think that the resources are there. It's not something that's going to require additional dollars. I think it's just pulling all the pieces together and looking at it a little differently than we have in the past. And I think it's going to be an asset to us. I also can foresee that there may be some legalities with this because of the documentation that was being utilized. So when you're talking about educational records and health records and things of that nature, that, you know, we're going to have to work through that. And I don't know what those answers are until we actually see what it is that they have. But I feel confident that this is going to be a tool that's going to be a great indicator for us to try to reduce this violence. And this will, I think, kind of dovetail with what we've done with Cease Violence. So these guys will get a head start on who the potential either victims or shooters are.
There are a ton of studies, and we had a community meeting a couple weeks ago, and one of the communities actually told, one of the groups, the group that we met with, they told us, they said, we're sick of being studied, and we want something to happen. And I can honestly tell you that I had to do a series of, to do an update for my boss, and that was one of the things that I put in there, is that we know the research is there, we know that it exists. The issue is, as a community, or as this group in the city, you have to push in order to force them to implement those things. We also recognize that there are a number of organizations, and I had the same thing in Florida when I used to work for the courts. We had a group of organizations that all did something, and they were all funded by the state, that it's something to deal with juveniles and truancy. But nobody ever sat down, they never talked to each other. In fact, the reality was that they were scared to talk to each other because they thought it was going to jeopardize their funding. So I mandated a meeting that they all had to come to, and we sat at a table and we went through and had everybody talk about their program. We took the descriptions of the program, and we actually set up for our judges a matrix, so when they had to make a decision about what program that the child was supposed to go to, then that would be the program that they were sent to. My hope is after this meeting, I have another meeting, and I want to look at the organizations and see who's doing what and what their agenda is, so that we can, if we can, I can facilitate that type of meeting here where the groups can get together and share information and not work in a silo. Because the reality is if I never look at what the chief is doing and the chief never looks at what DARRYL is doing, and we keep going and so we work in the silo, we never realize what the benefits are and how successful we can be. And I understand the different agendas, we have different thought processes, but the reality is that every group has one agenda, and that's to stop the violence. So it probably would be best if we could get everybody at a table and have an open forum discussion so that we can see where we're going. But this isn't rocket science by no means, and the research is there, and it also stems on not just the police, because he can't do it by himself. His agency can't do it by himself. It deals with jobs, it deals with education, it deals with future opportunities. If I'm a young guy and I want to go to college, I need to know that where can I go? What will I be able to do upon completion of that? What are my successes? We have to find a way, and that's where we have to find a way to get those kids that are involved in doing a lot of this violence to buy into, which is the big issue here, into what we would like to see them be as far as the future goes. And with that said, and while I'm standing here, I'm going to say one thing, is that as a group of adults, we have these discussions, and it's great, but if you don't include them, and you don't ask them what the buy-in is, you've lost before you get started, because they will not buy into that. And that was the meeting we had a couple of weeks ago. That's exactly what one of the kids said to us. He says, you guys aren't talking to us. So as a whole, I'm going to make that suggestion to you, is that you find those leaders and have them at the table and sit down and talk to them and find out what they need in order to change, to help facilitate change. Okay?
One of the things just on that I wanted to quickly say, that some of you were here when we had a panel of young males, specifically young black males from in the city, as young as 11, 13 years old, really sharing their perspective, and we want to continue to do that.
Real quick, I was a part of the research project, and we dispelled the notion that young black and brown men in the city of Wilmington don't want to work. We dispelled that notion. That myth has been permeating in our community for years. So we also discovered, or part of research suggests that if you afford people the economic opportunity to provide for themselves, then they won't resort to the street to meet their basic needs. So we know this. So we got to ask ourselves then, why are we willing to give $1 million to police overtime when we can take that same $1 million and employ 80 young youth at $1,000 a month stipend, and that right there, we can create an army. We have 80 young people. The people, and what Barry suggests, that if you keep them in constructive environments that nurture their capabilities and their skill set, then we can build an army that we keep talking about. But we got to ask ourselves, how come we're not doing it? And that right there is, it leads to a whole lot of other things that we're not going to discuss today. But my thing is that work. And I was up in New York with Dr. Jefferson St at Columbia Teachers College, went around table. And one guy, because the same question was asked, and the guy said that if people are talking about solutions and not talking about employment for our young, they know that they're wasting our time. So we got to be talking about employing our youth.
That was great. Actually, I just want to say, when you spoke about the CDC, that was something that didn't come up, so I would highly recommend, if it's okay, that you incorporate that. You said the school records, medical records, criminal records. So I guess we would still want to also include the employment piece as well. Okay, all right. The next question is, on the flip side of the violence, and this is a couple of questions in one, so I'm going to try to summarize it. On the flip side of the violence occurring is a mess of an aftermath that's left behind for families and communities to deal with, for the community to deal with. Are there any ideals or programs being put in place to address the PTSD, post-traumatic, I want to say hopefully stress disorder that much of the community is suffering from, that different levels or degrees?
So, one of the things that I'm currently looking at, so I told y'all that I'm a parent of a child who was killed in the street, whose blood actually stained the drains of the city. And I remember afterwards, real quick, I come from a family where my grandmom told stories, and inside these stories have meaning. So a lot of times you'll hear me tell or try to make my point through a story. So one day after my son got killed, I realized that when I stopped at a stop sign, I was stopping 3 and 4 feet back from the next car. I was constantly checking my mirrors. And I realized that I had put up like all these cameras around my house, right, paranoid. And I remember when that same day I went down to the University of Delaware, and as I was walking, someone from my cohort grabbed my shoulder from behind. And I immediately grabbed their wrist and bent it. Because in the city, that right there can mean bye, you're going. And I realized that time the trauma that I was going through. And I started asking myself, if we have kids living in the inner city, have what news we call the war zone, right? And we have these kids constantly being impacted by the domestic violence in some cases, the environmental violence, the violence they see on the street, the violence they see on TV, even in their video games. I gotta ask myself that when this kid is asked to go do his homework, and he do his homework in this chaotic environment, then when he goes down to Newark and go to school, and his teacher tells him to go study, know that that normal, that quiet is not his normal anymore. His normal is chaotic. And I think that a lot of our children are being misdiagnosed because they're not deviant children. The culture itself may be considered deviant, but the child is not deviant. The child just learned well. But all children are great learners. And what I take from that is that a lot of our kids is suffering from post-traumatic stress. So one of the things I want to study, and I have to work on my dissertation, is how do I tease that out right there, or what kind of interventions can I develop to help our children who are being misdiagnosed, which is leading to dropout, which is leading to the same rate of unemployment in some cases. So my thing is that PTSD is real, and I think that's about time that we formulate something or put something together. And I want to be the first one to do that. So I'm going to the city, give me some money, the state gives me some money. But it's a serious issue. Thank you.
Anyone?
There's an excellent study done in Atlanta where they, down at Emory, and they found that the rate of PTSD among the civilians, not just the kids, but teens and young adults, in certain neighborhoods was profoundly higher than military PTSD. And I'm not minimizing military PTSD, but when you see the behaviors of the kids, that, just like you said, they're constantly exposed to the violence, whether it's to them or around them, vicariously around them, they have an incredibly higher likelihood of being violent themselves.
Chaz, we are going to open up, and thank you for those important comments, but we're going to open up in a little while for some public comment. I just think when we're talking about the language, and we heard about post-traumatic stress, when we think about post, we think about the post-test, the post-evaluation, the things that happen after they come from the war, and now they're, so a lot of what we're dealing with also is trauma that's recurrent. It's not after the fact. So that's just part of the language that we want to understand.
Yes, the city has a component. It's called a CDCP. It's Child Development and Community Policing. There's an initiative that when children are exposed to violence, that this group will come in and provide some counseling sessions to see what resources are necessary as to what they've been exposed to. It's not mandatory that the parents have to involve their children in this, but every violent incident that does occur, that component of our organization does go out and make themselves available to those who have been affected. And I don't know the current numbers that we have right now, but Doug, you have that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Just to jump in on this, two things. One is, going back to the last question about the research piece, we're aggressively going after federal grants, and the way that the nature of the federal grants are today is that there has to be a research piece to it, which then leads me to answer this question. Because we're pursuing these grants, now we just submitted one Tuesday, what we were talking about in this particular grant is the gun violence, and there was a recent study that involved this unit that the chief is talking about, and the 40% of all Wilmington 8th graders feel unsafe in their neighborhood, compared to 8th graders throughout the state is only 18% feel unsafe. So that's a dramatic difference. So.
Thank you. The next question is, it was recently suggested that combining city, state, and county police forces might help end the violence. Would this work? Why or why not?
I can say, as a proud member of the Wilmington Department of Police for 30 years, we have worked with our partners, state and county, on different deployment schemes and different operations, and we do that consistently. I will say that within our authorized strength, the manpower that we have and the responsibilities that we are accountable to, we do the best with the numbers that we have. I will tell you that the state has the same obligations. They are given a certain authorized strength, and within that authorized strength, they have responsibilities and obligations that they're supposed to handle throughout the state. Same thing with the county. They have an authorized strength that is outlined to handle their obligations and responsibilities. So in saying if you combine those three police departments to become one department, you have not added any additional officers. You have not segregated out any different responsibilities, because they're all still going to exist. So whether you combine the entire three agencies together, it does not increase the number of officers out there. The same things that are occurring within the state will continue to occur. So I don't think the question gets answered by combining all the agencies. Each agency police a little bit differently because of the demographics and because of the environments that they're tasked to handle. I will say this, because again, I'm a proud city police officer, that if you sent me to any community throughout the state, I will have no issue going out there and addressing their concerns, because we handle everything in the city. I don't say this to denigrate any of our agency partners. Newcastle County Police, their environment is different than ours. Their economic base is different than what we handle in the city. If you look at the state, their geographic area is totally different than what we are involved in with the city. So saying that if you combine the three of us that you're going to get a better result, again, I don't think that is the answer.
Thank you.
I'll make it even simpler. Working in Florida, they've done that to several different agencies. One of the big things where we are is they like to combine our communication centers, and because it's a way of saving money. Ultimately what happens is when an organization does that or a community decides to do that, they lose control. You have no control, you have no say-so, because it is at a much higher level and it involves many more people. The beauty about having your own PD is that you have a lot of say-so, and you have City Hall to complain to. And what looking at what an agency ends up doing is they end up taking the city. You're going to still pay the same taxes. It may even cost you more to have some of those services because you've combined. So the reality is there's no benefit to you when you do it. The only time where I've ever seen it successful and what actually happens is when a small community can no longer afford to do it and they dissolve their agency and then the sheriff's office or the county police department picks that up, that's one thing. But if you guys have the resources and the money and you're capable of doing that, then my suggestion to you is do not do it. Keep your agency and keep control of your own agencies.
Anyone else?
I think that on this topic, there's been a lot of discussion about what happened in Camden with their situation. I would say that there's two things that you need to remember. One is that that city was facing bankruptcy, and that's why they did what they did with that police department. And the second thing is that as far as I know, and I've been also, this has been confirmed through the Department of Justice, is that particular model has never been replicated anywhere. I know that they wanted to try to do that in Trenton, and they walked away from it. They didn't do it. So I'm a retired Wilmington policeman, and I had one of those fortunate careers where I worked with a lot of the federal agencies, and I worked with a lot of the different police departments within the state. And I will tell you that this is absolutely different style of policing. These guys are trained to do what they do. And yes, there's room for improvement, but you're talking about apples and oranges here if you think that bringing in outside police department is going to have a different impact here. So.
All right, here's a two-part question. Are there any leads on how the guns are getting into the community, and are there any planned solutions to get the guns off the streets?
Well, this is always a topic that always drives me out of my mind because I was a drug cop, and back in '95, I ended up getting pulled for a detail with alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And we worked specifically firearms trafficking for 6 years. As a result of that, it really opened my eyes to what the firearms issues are out here on the streets. I've been involved in legislative changes since 1996. I've testified in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware regarding these issues. When people say where are these guns coming from, all you have to do is look at the trace data. On average, 60% of all Delaware crime guns come from Delaware. If you look at a crime gun that comes from another state, there has to be an investigative piece to that. A perfect example would be is if we recover a gun that came from, I don't know, say California. If that gun was traced out to the first retail dealer, if you don't make that phone call up, everybody would assume that that gun is a California gun. In reality, once you do the investigative piece of it, it's clear that a lot of these guns that come from out of state were, sold to an individual from Delaware. And if the gun's been here for 10 years, then that's not a California gun, it's a Delaware gun. So that 60% is even increased. So what I think that there needs to be is a concerted effort with all the police departments to look at point of purchase or point of sale, because this is where you look at straw purchase. Straw purchase cases they're complex conspiracy cases, and I'm not going to get into the mechanics of what they are. Everybody realizes it's the straw man theory and how those cases are done are very complex, but somebody has to do that. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing trends where, first off, I want to say there's only one FFL in the city of Wilmington, and very rarely do any of our crime guns come from there. They all come from out in the county. So that's why I say collectively with the state and the county and the city, there has to be a concerted effort to work on point of purchase. We have to send a message that buying guns and putting them on the street is just unacceptable. We're seeing trends now where heroin addicts are buying guns for heroin dealers in the city of Wilmington in exchange for heroin. And when you look at individuals that have put 9 and 10 guns on the street, You know, these guys are, on a daily basis, they're getting at least one gun a day. We can't keep up with that, you know, flow of guns coming into the city. So, I mean, collectively, we need to resolve this. Now, the state has started a gun task force. Wilmington Police participate in it. And, you know, we're hoping that this will, you know, be directed to look at, you know, the straw purchase piece of this. So, yes.
Is it true that if a person reported a gun stolen, and then later is involved in the, or they find it, or is involved in a crime, they give it back to the person who reported it stolen?
They can. And what's happened is there's been recent legislation that was passed so that if your gun is stolen, you're required to report it stolen. Another piece of that is that people will routinely buy guns for individuals knowing that they're going to be involved in a crime, and then they report the gun stolen falsely because they're trying to disassociate themselves from that gun. So that in itself is part of this straw purchase piece that, you know, needs to be investigated. And, you know, again, without really getting into the details, this is something that has to be, we need to devote resources to this, because this will stem the tide when people realize that it's just not as easy as going down to the gun store and buying a gun, and that there's no ramifications for it. Back in 1995, when I started doing this, Delaware was a source state. It's its own source state, as I already mentioned. But Delaware is also a source state for surrounding states. You know, we have an instant check system here where basically you go in and within a very short period of time, provided you pass the criminal background check, you can walk out with as many guns as you want. And I'm not saying that there's an issue with that. What I'm saying is I think that there has to be, you know, it has to be monitored a little bit better. So.
Thank you. What type of data is being collected regarding the violence in Wilmington, and how does one access that data?
There is a uniform crime reporting system throughout the state of Delaware where every agency reports crimes that occur within their area. How do you get access to that? It's not made readily available to the community that they can go into access these databases, but we do put out statistics when things are happening. So as we have community meetings, we put information out depending on what people want to ask, because the questions and what someone wants varies so differently from one community to the next. We don't just put out blanket information. So a lot of times we come to these meetings to find out what is the interest of that community, and then we go back to our collected information and we try to produce those kind of reports. Now, I will also say that sometimes we have problems producing those reports because we don't have a number of crime analysts who can respond to those requests. So we get it out as best we can. And we do report our numbers at the end of each year.
Marshall, if I understand the question correctly, I think that the CJC used to issue a final shooting report every year, and they turned it over to SAC, the Statistical Analysis Center, which I think now CJC has just taken it back again. And if anyone is really interested in the last, say, 15 years of the shooting reports, then I can have that data accessible to them. I have several of the reports myself. But we also have the People's Report, which has a whole gambit of information in there. So if you want to know about stop and frisk rates, how many times a person's been arrested, detained, stuff like that right there, or how many times a person witnessed someone getting shot or stabbed, we have a wealth of information in the People's Report, which is thepeoplereport.com. So you can go on there and get some of the information also.
That's the PAR project, right? That's correct. Okay. Yeah, PAR, CDC, so good collaboration. Right.
The FBI keeps statistics on that, and you have access to that, you know, as a civilian. So if you go on and I'm not exactly sure of the site, but FBI has the UCR numbers that the chief was referring to. You can go back and look at crime data for the city of Wilmington going back, probably 15 years, and it is open to the public. What you won't get is crime data that hasn't yet been turned into FBI. So if it's something that's happened like this year, I don't know that they reflect that. But like last year's crime data is there. So.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be the last question, and then we're going to open it up for public comment, so people can definitely say or ask questions or make a statement. The last question is, if we know the hot spots where most of the shootings occur, why not just reallocate resources to increase patrols in those particular neighborhoods?
Well, we've done that, and we've asked our commanders to do that. One reason why we fall short sometimes is because we weren't at our authorized strength. Currently, we have an academy class of 34 individuals. When those numbers hit the street, again, that's going to give us a greater presence to make sure that we continue to put people in those hotspot areas. If you've noticed since the beginning of January, the first 26 days of the month, we had 5 homicides that occurred real quick. And that caused us to take a look at our police department and look at the allocation of personnel. So we took a lot of our personnel out of specialized divisions to put a presence on the street. And I will tell you that every night that deployment has been out there, there's not been one shooting incident and/or homicide has occurred after that. But again, that's something that is more of a temporary fix because we cannot sustain that for a long period because of our manpower issues. So in putting out that deployment, we've shut down so many other areas within the police department, but we saw that the urgency was we needed to get to the street to slow down and stem the tide of what was happening. I will tell you that we had 8 homicides that have occurred this year, and those additional 3 that did occur, they occurred during the time periods in which this operation was not out there on the street. It occurred just before or on a day that we did not have covered. So that's why we put the additional overtime on those days where we didn't have cover, was to disrupt, to make sure that we could cover that time period. And that was one of the reasons we asked our partners from Newcastle County to come in and cover specific days for us. And as we move forward, we have this overtime operation that is generated through the Attorney General's office that will put some walking patrols out. It will give us an opportunity to put those walking patrols in the hotspot areas as we see the information dictates in terms of where the crimes are occurring. And that will also allow us to use disrupt in other areas of the city that will continue to be in hotspots while we get to a point where we can put more manpower out when our academy comes out May the 15th. So again, it's a matter of sustainability and maintaining our authorized strength because we know when we have presence, and again, getting to Wolfie's point, it's not about, we're not trying to be an occupying army here. We know that the police department is only one component of it. It's a tool in the whole chest of what the city has to offer to its citizens and residents, and it's something that the residents also have to have a little bit of buy-in, and that's why we're really pushing. We have to have this community policing built. We have to build back these levels of trust where individuals feel comfortable coming to talk to a police officer, an officer feels comfortable going out, talking in the community. So as we establish these relationships, we get to a level of, we take away opportunities. With the community and the police working together, the best we can do in curbing a lot of this is taking away opportunities. And that's what Disrupt does. It just takes away the opportunities right now while we're able to sustain this. Because we know we're not going to stop everything. When someone has something on their mind, they want to do something, they will pick the opportunity that is best for them. But what we're trying to do is limit those opportunities that they have.
While you're standing, can you please also comment on the progress of the homicide unit?
Well, our homicide unit is up and running. They're looking at cases that have occurred in the past, and they're looking at things that are more recent. We have 5 detectives and a supervisor who are solidly dedicated to looking at those types of crimes. And they share that information at our weekly TAPS meetings. They communicate with the other divisions, they communicate with the other departments, so we have a component that is looking at that specifically. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that because we have a homicide unit that the closure rate has automatically spiked up, because that's not what it's about. Even in that, having a homicide unit, what's key in that is still those relationships that are built in the community is what's going to make the difference in that. Because we can have the best technology, we can have the best detectives who go out here and uncover the crime, collect the evidence, but when we don't have the corroborating information, we can only take that as far as we can until something needs to be corroborated to make that one last final point to get this thing carried over to an arrest and conviction. So we can only take it as far as the best information that we have. And the best information that lies is in the community.
We really want to hear from the audience. We have one brief comment.
I want to add to Chief Cummings' comment. There's another group of guys who are out there on the streets. They started in August of 2014, and because of the sensitive nature of their work, they are unable to actually publicize a lot of the work that they're doing. But they're working in these hot areas, these hot spots, these targeted areas within our community. Because when you look at a place like the East Side, it's not the whole East Side that is bad. It's not the whole East Side. So it's a 3x3 radius, and you have people like Ronald Brown, Pat Gibbs, Chaz from Christianity Care, Doug IARDELLA, and myself, who was part of the task force, to put these guys who were formerly from the streets in these areas to try to prevent some of the crime before it happened. And I think that this right here, some of their hard work is finally paying dividends. Along with the Operation Interrupt, these guys right here also have been out there, and some of their mediations, they sworn to the guys that we can't disclose your name, but these guys are doing a lot of mediating on the streets of these guys right here. And it would be nice if we lived in a world where they could share a lot of their resources and stuff. But those guys are doing a great job out there. The Peacekeepers is another group who's doing a great job out there. And I think that that right there all goes to, and it really rebuts the argument made by Newsweek that this right here is a town that's not optimistic. We're very optimistic, because we have people now who was once part of the problem being part of the solution. So my hat's off to the Cease Violence guys and Peacekeepers.
That was awesome. I just want to make one quick comment, then we're going to move on to open discussion. Very quickly, there's this discussion will continue. I want Chief Cummings to talk about the role of the commission, the Governor's Commission, And their next meeting is going to be March the 10th, and it's going to be at the William Hicks Anderson Center. And we really recommend that you continue this discussion there as well, because that information will be taken in consideration. It is for the community aspect of the commission.
All right. I will tell you, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me to tell you what the commission is going to come up with and or do. And even though I serve as a part of that commission, that's a commission that's looking at my police department. And I'm providing a lot of information to the commission. What I hope to come out of this, being a commissioner on this panel and them looking at our police department, is to take a look at, again, we've opened our doors for anything that they want to look at, to solidly come back and say, either you're doing a great job here, you can change here, these are some other recommendations that you can do. But we also know that in that, there's going to be some funding issues that come out of that. And I don't know where that's going to come from at this point. But I know there will be some recommendations that will come down, and I think there will be some good things. And again, we are open to implementing things that make it better for our entire city. So the commission's work, again, is to look at our police department, see where there may be some shortcomings, see where there may be some things that we're doing right, and bring that back to the table, bring that back to the mayor so that he can take a look at it as it goes to the governor. And we'll implement best practices. We will continue to do things that we do that are right. We will continue to, from my standpoint, be open to change and making these meetings and building this relationship that I know is very key to everything that we do. I mean, to me, it's really that simple. It's really about building relationships, having that trust level built back up where people are comfortable talking to one another. Because it's not about policing alone. Policing is not, that's not going to solve all of our issues that are occurring in the city. So again, I hope this commission comes back with a report similar to that, but that remains to be seen at the end of the month.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to now open up to open discussion. I know you've raised your hand.
So we just wanted to, and it was the last question on the card. Somebody asked, how does that commission get input? We have a questionnaire that the commission has put out. It's at the table before you leave. It's online, there's a website, and we wanted to just give you that since that question was brought up. So thank you so much, Marcia. There's a couple questions that I know some people are raising their hands, but I got just some notes on a card. So I want to invite, if we only have one microphone, so I'm going to leave it right on the panel table so you all can just address the comments, if you could, whoever thinks could answer it best. And if you all, the acoustics are pretty good in the room, could just speak up. Ashley Biden has a question, and Keenan Jones will follow with the question or comment. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Please.
Yeah, if you could just stand up and project a little bit. Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah. So, you know, I've heard a lot of good things. Thank you for being here. Dave, you talked about there being, you know, a ton of different task forces and commissions and a ton of research and more conversation. And I feel like the data is really there. Recently, the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing released their interim report, right? And what was stated was some procedurally just behaviors have 4 central tenets. Treating people with dignity and respect, giving individuals voice during encounters, neutral and transparent in decision-making, and conveying trustworthy motives. You talked a little bit about, you know, your involvement with this commission and the Violence Reduction Network, and talked about assessment with technology and crime analysis, deployment strategies. What are you guys, what are you doing to truly change the internal culture and how the police and the community relate, right? So I feel like there's a lot of talk about what needs to be done, but what are the actual strategies to do that? And I also, I have so much to ask, but I'll keep it short. I wanted just to read this because it really resonated with me. This was from a woman, her name is Michelle Alexander. She says, I hope and pray that we do not confuse the indictments of a few police officers with justice. Justice is when police are not working as warriors in a war on drugs, war on crime, but are serving as peace officers. Justice is when civilian police review boards are welcomed by police departments because they exist to serve our communities, not to control them. Justice is when people trust the police because the police routinely show respect, honesty, and integrity in their dealings with everyone, no matter who they are, where they come from, or what they may have done. To borrow Dr. Cornel West's words, justice is what love looks like in public. When our police departments regularly act as though they genuinely care about the people they are paid to serve, particularly in the poorest communities, rather than simply to punish, monitor, and control, justice will be done. And my thing just went. But basically that was, justice will be done and not a moment before. So I guess what I'm asking is, how are you working to truly change the culture of the police departments? And can we take the research that's already out there? And you know, there's some great recommendations in the President's 21st Century Policing Report, and implement them.
Thank you. I tend to agree with a lot of what you just said, but without answering everything, I don't necessarily totally buy into the Citizen Review Board, but I'll give you some on that. What I've done so far in our police department is try to lead by example. And the things that you say, you know, treat people with respect and dignity, and you give people an opportunity to talk and express their opinion, things of that nature. I went through the report a little bit, And I saw that it was so basic that it's what you should do anyway as a human being, that you respect people based on the fact that, again, they're just a human, not the fact that they're one color or another or what community they live in. That's what I try to relate to our officers. So I try to be the example for that. And in that, I have supervisors meetings that are mandatory. So I set the tone and the direction in which we're are headed. We have the cultural diversity training. And when I talk about cultural diversity training, we're not just talking about coming in and that we make people understand, but I also term it awareness. Some people said sensitivity training. I don't think it's about sensitivity, because you get sensitivity once you become aware, and then you start opening up to understand that people do different things in different ways based on their culture. Not that you have to accept it, but you need to understand it. And so from my point of view, what we're doing culturally inside the police department, I'm setting the example. I go down to all my roll calls, I go down and I speak with all the officers, and then we're holding people accountable to what we said we came here to do, and that is to serve, protect people's civil rights. We came here to protect their constitutional rights, their freedom of speech, their Fourth Amendment, their Fifth Amendment. I make sure that I reinforce these messages. So when I saw that report come out, I just thought it was affirming the way that I've been operating anyway. So again, to me, that's just an affirmation, and we will continue to do that within our police department. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to happen overnight. I've been chief now since May last year. That's about 8 to 9 months, and we're not going to flip it overnight, but we are making strides to change it. And that report will give us some things to present as we move forward.
And actually, I believe that one thing we need to start looking at is one thing that we need to look at is the transferring of this trust. So how can this trust be transferred? Dr. Payne and I often joke about this, that he was able to transfer trust to me to the academy. And in a way, I helped him transfer the trust back into the community. So I believe that there is a way to transfer that trust. When you have the social capital in your neighborhood, you can bring a person in there if they know you are well intended. And I think that, so touch on the other thing about Stoutland. So there's a work in 2001 by Stoutland. She looked at a group of boys in Boston. And what she did, she basically broke trust down into 2 dimensions: procedural-based trust and outcome-based trust. And the procedural-based trust deals with being respected and making sure that your priorities are met, and that when you come to the police at my cat's in the tree, that it's not dismissed as something frivolous. And also the accountability part, being dependable and also being competent when you serve the people. So that right there, I believe that kind of trust right there can be transferred. And if you take the concerns of the people, like in any relationship, if there's tension in that relationship, you need to address the concerns. So there is some research out there from the People Report that actually said that if you're able to address the instrumental concerns, fear, people fear of being victimized, and crime rates, then you can impact procedural-based trust. And if you want to look at quality of life issues, potholes, the stuff that the Attorney General Office is looking at, the nuisance abatement stuff, then they said that right there can impact the outcome-based trust. But I believe all that trust right there in total can be transferred. We just got to get the right people in the right place. And we got to recognize that we got a group of people out there that need to start being paid as experts, because they're experts in making these connections in our community. It's time that we stop treating them as minimum wage workers.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody know where the police academy is held? Do you all know? I just, from a civilian perspective, it's actually right in the heart of the community at PS DuPont Middle School, which I really thought was amazing. We recently did an event called Raising Kings, and I think what we're talking about, and I just want to share this from a civilian perspective, is less about training and more about fidelity. You'll hear some powerful credos going on in that school. In fact, those officers were running for hours up and down the steps, I don't know how many stories, and there were several of us in the hallways during that event. Every single officer, you talk about respect, had to say, "Good afternoon, ma'am, how are you doing? Good afternoon, ma'am." Like, there was probably 30 or 40 officers. So a part of that training, I would imagine, since after running miles for hours up and down steps in an entire school, they had to say, "Good afternoon, ma'am, how are you doing?" But how many of you have ever had an officer walk by on the street and say that? So it's a part of the training that's not being implemented with fidelity. So I just want to share that because I experienced it. Keenan Jones.
Keenan Jones. I came here simply for to listen. I'm kind of new to this. And I had ideas. I brainstormed with someone named Miss Caroline I met at the movie theaters about a month ago. It was just completely random. We were stuck in the line, get back customer service, waiting for popcorn together. And we started talking about the violence in Wilmington. And just a real quick background on me. I'm from Wilmington, on the west side, 8th and Windsor. Lived there about my whole life, or the majority of my life. And I moved out of Wilmington, live in Newcastle now. And I work in special education. And I've been working with kids since I was 14 in summer camps and after school programs, became team leader. And I used to have to walk from west side over to Riverside. And I did it, you know, safely and comfortably, didn't have a problem with it. Now, I don't think I can make that trip nowadays, no. But anyways, getting to my point, what I'm trying to do here is, I guess, get advice from my elders and my peers and just a way to start some type of movement that will actually get some feedback and positive results. And what I'm thinking about, or what I'm going to do is start a basketball tournament to get raise funding for a movement that I want to start socially, like putting a Facebook name on a Facebook page, just get it out there, pinpoint those people who have 5,000 friends on Facebook. Like, it's just because that's what our generation does nowadays, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And I want to come up with I came up with something. It's kind of like I got it from a song. It's I don't know who sings it because I don't really listen to rap that much. It's like You're Mad or Not. But what I mean is like I want to be mad, not emotionally. I want to be making a difference. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to raise money to get these T-shirts. I'm going to walk around Wilmington. You know, every single part of Wilmington, West Side, East Side, North Side, like Southbridge, Riverside. I'm going to walk around like passing out for free. And that's what I'm going to get to. And I'm going to get people to support me, follow me on my page. I haven't made it yet, but I'm working making it. And I just want to get those connections and networking and advice from everyone, because like it takes community to make a difference. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just letting you know.
Keenan, that's awesome. And I know we probably have some feedback to that, but I don't think you ran into the elder randomly at the theater. I noticed you've been sitting by an elder that's been knitting the whole time. So we actually took a picture of you, so you two together, that's cool.
Can I piggyback off of what he said? If I could take your number after it's done, because I make T-shirts and I do a lot of stuff with the youth too for free. So me and you exchange information. I press T-shirts.
I was going to say the same thing. Keenan, I was going to say the same thing. If you were by yourself, have you heard of the Voices for the Voiceless Keith James group? You probably need to, we'll talk at the end to get you in touch with him too, because they're doing some of the same things that you're doing, which is a young group that are talking about the issues that are going on around the city.
Keenan, we definitely want to get your information, and if you have a Facebook page and you want to write down any of your social media information, we'll announce it before everybody leaves so that they're prepared to write it down. I think the next comment came from the Peacekeepers.
My name is Bilal, and I'm also a survivor of violence. I lost my niece to gun violence and also lost a grandson to gun violence. So Wolfie, I'm saying, I don't know how you feel, but I do know how it feels. My question is, I have seen more patrols in the area. I have talked to some individuals on the street. Matter of fact, a young lady here lost her son. And the question comes up about cameras. We need them to be installed, maintained, and remain functional. My question is that being taken place, and who are manning these cameras?
We do maintain the cameras around the city. However, they are not a 24/7 operation. That's some of the things that are going on in these conversations when the commission's here. We've been around to different cities looking at how they man their camera systems and making sure that the technology is compatible. These are things that are occurring, and we know that to make it more effective, that it needs to be manned. In fact, somebody needs to be sitting in front of that camera, because the camera is only as good as what is put out there to be. You put it on a pan cycle, it's going to capture some things, but the camera is not a thinking person. So if it sees something, it's not going to stop and record that. It's just on an automatic pan cycle, so it may miss what just took place, or it could capture a piece of it. But we know in order for it to be effective that it has to be manned 24/7, and those are talks that are being had in reference to that.
What about the ones that are not working?
I'm sorry?
What about the ones that are not working?
We don't have any that are not working because they are manned out of downtown Visions. And when there is a camera that is not functional, they bring that to our attention and we make sure we take care of that immediately. But we don't have any that are non-functional.
The ones on 24th? I'm sorry, go ahead, sister.
The ones on 24th and Carter, with
Yes.
my nephew,
Yes.
the 17-year-old, my sister's son was killed on the 16th of February. It wasn't working. And now it's not working.
And what gives you an indication that it was not working?
Downtown Visions told the detectives.
It's not that they're not working, they're on a pan cycle. They don't capture everything that occurs.
They said it wasn't working.
All right, I'll check into that
My
for sure.
son's case said it's not working. She pulled the tapes and the tape, it's not working. My son, like, they're dependent on his friend that he was walking with to give information, and the friend is scared. But the camera that was right there where my son was killed is not working.
Okay.
It's out of order.
I will look into it.
We had a question right over here.
I'd like to know how you feel that parents and grandparents can be utilized to turn the tide. I just don't feel the presence of parent organizations and let alone grandparent organizations.
I know we have parents who have lost children here. I heard Keenan say we have to get mad, not only make a difference, but really get mad in order to make a difference. Okay.
Again, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, because I've seen my sister on a daily basis. Sorry if I take too long, y'all. But I've seen my sister on a daily basis for years. Look out for all her kids. No, like, special, attention to any one of them. But her boys, she had boys that the father was not involved in their life at all. Rip and running. She works midnight shift. From midnight shift, she's getting off midnight shift, going to another job 9 to 2, just to support her kids. She called the probation officer a week before her son was killed to say, I fear for my son's life. They said, are you getting any threats? The next week, her son is dead. Just from walking around the corner out of his house, he's dead. And now it's like, they pull our kids' records and they dig into the records. Now it seems like, everything's at a standstill. We're not the perpetrators. We didn't do it, but we're still in his death. We want to fight for victory for him. And I've been out there on the corner. I have kids myself. I have a husband, but I've been out there even before this happened, on a corner holding up signs. You know what I mean? Because I want the youth to know that you might not be my child, but I'm fighting for you as well. I'm fighting for mine. I'm fighting for everybody, for my kids that has to have kids and raise kids themselves. So I don't think about myself. I'm fighting for me. I'm fighting for my sister. I'm fighting for my other sister's kids. So it just doesn't, I just want you to know that we're not here at this meeting just because my nephew was killed. And just like I say, and I said 50 million times, if love could have saved my nephew, he would be here and he would live forever.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what I want you to know. We're just not all, we just not parents that's just sitting around waiting for things to happen. We don't intend for our kids to just give our kids over to the street. That's not what we did. My sister cares for her kids. I care for my sister's kids like they were my own. We're twins. She just lost her twin. So it hurts for me. My sister would be 37 years old to bury her 17-year-old child, to leave his twin behind. So, and that's all I want to say, because I hear her over the telephone, and I talk to her, and I'm at work because I can't support my sister. I feel like I want to be there every day now, every single day. And I'm like, even if I was there, what would have saved Poppy's life? If I would have just drove through and just stalled him just for a minute, it might have just saved his life from walking around that corner.
Can we drive through? Can we walk around the corners? Can we not be afraid to to come into our communities and afraid of our children. Mom, stand up.
There was a question earlier about saying, how do you bring the kids that want to change, or how do you bring them involved in the situations that's going on now? Sitting in the PO's office, you know, my son sat there in front of the PO and was like, I'm ready for change, you know, but how do you bring kids and change their environment or whatever? Me, I live in the city. I can't afford to go out in Newark. I can't afford to go out in Newcastle, but my son was ready for change. It's Facebook conversations of him going back and forth with his cousin saying, yo, I'm ready for a change. I'm ready to get out of this city. The next week he's dead. He didn't get a chance to make change. I won't never see my son graduate. I won't never be able to see if he was going to have kids later on. My 17-year-old daughter is without her twin, their birthdays next month. I got a 1-year-old son that will never see his brother again. So I don't know. I have another son, 19 years old. What do I mean, right now he's angry. Right. Somebody took his brother. I have nephews that's angry, their cousin is gone. You know, I've been working with the detective off and on, and you know, now I'm not getting any responses from phone calls or whatever, but all the information that she has is coming from me. Right. Because this other little boy is scared to talk. But when I tell you, I promised my son at that gravesite, I'm going to catch this killer. All right. You know, it's gangs out here. A gang member killed my son.
This is a sincere call to action, and Mom, we thank you, we love you, and we really feel for you. And everybody in this room is here because we want answers together. We want to be there. We want to show up for these kids. Just because a young brother has on a hoodie, come on. These are human children, American children. These are Delaware's children. Come on. Come on. Let's leave here today and drive through those neighborhoods and be there. Come on, June.
First, I want to say it's not your fault. Right. All right. I know that's going to weigh on your chest real heavy. It's not your fault. That's first and foremost. All right. I deal with a lot of families of victims of violence. I have a group called Mothers, and I deal with a lot of families, victims of violence, and so on and so forth. What you're witnessing right here is PTSD. Say it don't exist, say it's post, present, whatever. That's PTSD. Every night she go to sleep, she hear a pop. If a light bulb pop, she's jumping up. I don't even know her, but I'm certain of it. We all in here. I buried my sister. That's my uncle over there. I buried my sister. I buried my nephew Billy about 3 weeks ago, and I got another cousin that I buried about maybe 4 years ago. Not to mention last year, our little cousin Roderick and his mom. So I'm uncomfortably comfortable with this shit. Excuse me. I'm uncomfortably comfortable with this, and that's the problem. That we almost so comfortable with it that we expect it. But another thing, as far as the commission and what we're doing here, there's not enough people in this room.
That's right.
I can reach friends in Seattle on Facebook. I can find out what's the next party going on for the next 3 or 4 weeks just by walking through Market Street Mall. So there's no way that this commission or everything going on, this room is not filled. This room should be filled with everybody, not just the people that can walk home from here, right? Just from the hood, but people from outside the county and stuff like that. We need to reach out. We're not networking. I got a group, and I'm definitely going to change information with you, and we need to talk. But we're not reaching out. Not enough people in here know each other. All these people, everybody here is obviously concerned, but not enough of us know each other. I know his face because Dr. Jackson. I know your face because I come to these things all the time. But we're not networking. You want to know how to get people involved? Your son's friends, listen, come with me down to this little event we're going to. You need to see this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm upset. I'm upset now. But the other thing I really want to get back to, I was wondering with the PTSD question, but we have a demographic of children who are going to grow up without parents. They're going to grow up without parents, and they're going to be angry. I promise you this. They're going to be angry. I don't know what else the commission does, but y'all need to address that. Because just like we didn't realize that the crack baby be made back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right here, right now.
Oh, right here, right now. The same thing is going to happen with these angry children when they're 20, 25. We'll have the same situation. This violence ain't new, it's just escalating. So what we need to do is start addressing that as well, because it's equally as important as the violence that is created by it.
Juna, I have to just speak to the movement for a culture of peace that's here right now. This is our purpose, to network communities that maybe before were not in a room together like this. You know, when we gathered on September 27th, just about everybody in this room, plus another 500-600 people, and we had about 3 newspaper articles said, why are these people coming from out the city? This is why we're coming from out of the city. These are our children. People came from all over the state. And people wondered why people were here from outside of the city. It's critically important. This is our human community. Mom?
I stand before you. I lost my son 15 years ago in the year 2000. It's not going to go away. The pain's not going to go away. But as he said, I have grandchildren from that son. He left 5 children. Today, they're like 19. The tears flow when I mention his name. That's why I'm here today, for them. One is in prison now. He's 19 years old because of hurt. He lived with all through his school year, nothing but hurt, anger. And how do you address this? I talk to him, I tell him about his father and this and that. He didn't know how he died. I explained that to him. But the hurt and the anger remains. He sent me a letter yesterday. He said, I miss my father. I guess I'll see him when I get there. As we have to deal with that. That's the aftermath of all of that. Yes, his killer's doing life. I praise God for that. And they'll find him. Don't worry, they'll find him. You just have to have patience and you trust God. You go on your knees and you trust God, He will make it easy for you. But I stand to say that in reference to the children that are left behind.
We have to connect with those children. And I know people often shut down and don't want to hear about programs. I'm going to speak for One Village Alliance. No, we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough. But we have our Raising Kings program is specifically for young African American males, and we brought 450 of them together. And yes, we had to say $500 cash prize for a basketball tournament, Madden and 2K. And, you know, we brought them in from the streets. And there's several programs, whether they're reaching 5, 15, none of us are doing enough individually, but collectively, a mother, a grandmother, let's go out into these communities and not be afraid. Brother?
Hi, I'm back here to Cease Violence Wilmington. We deal with high-risk individuals. That doesn't always mean perpetrators, that means victims. One of our participants, who was recently in a gunshot wound victim, his mother is afraid. She's afraid for him to leave the house. So Cease Violence sees to it that he gets back to social school. There are other issues that have to be dealt with. He has physical therapy that has to be taken care of, psychological therapy that has to be taken care of, and she applied for a victim's comp. Now, because the officer felt that he wasn't forthcoming with information, he was denied victim's compensation. Okay? This young woman has other children, she works and what have you, and this young man is trying to change his life. And he didn't know he shot. He had no idea. He wasn't the primary target in this day. But because it was felt that he wasn't forthcoming with information, services were denied. Now I'm on a constant search for resources for people like that, for people like these other victims, for people that are suffering these things. And when I run into a wall like that, the young lady had no idea that there was an appeal process, so she missed the deadline. So now she's stuck out there, she has to work. These things have to be paid. And I'm on a constant search for resources for people like that.
Okay.
What am I going to do about it? What can I tell this lady who is just afraid for other children to even sit on the porch.
Right.
Let alone deal with the issues of the financial issues of seeing her son here. Just something as simple as that. Something that we have to deal with. We can no longer continue to treat victims as a perpetrator. They can't be used like that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. We're going to take one more comment. I just want to let you all know that this dialogue, critically important. I know there's still some hands and we're going to be here. It doesn't mean we're leaving. We just want to be respectful of everybody's time. But it's critically important dialogue, and I want to speak to the platform that the Culture of Peace has created. We do have a Facebook page. Please connect on it. Share resources, Movement for a Culture of Peace. If you know of a meeting coming up, a lot of these meetings are packed out, but a lot of people are tired of talking and tired of hearing other people talk. They're tired of being studied. They're tired of the reports. But let people know we can't give up. We can't be tired, be complacent, and just stay in our homes. Show up. I think that that's what we can do. We're gonna take one final comment from Marsha, and we're gonna give everybody a 30-second closure. I think this was a powerful dialogue, and we're gonna be here. We're not running out. Each of you connect with us and connect on the Movement for a Culture of Peace. Marsha?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Bobby, I think that WOLFIE and Dr. Payne here on the CAR project is a perfect example or a model of what can come out of when you have someone such as Dr. Payne being able to mentor and bringing in those within the community they hope to serve. So I ask those who do have the resources to continue to feed into programs like that, because then WOLFIE as a leader can now take on and help some other youth. And it really creates a true trickle-down effect where now you're lifting up the community by funding one organization who then develops the leaders who can then go and continue to help and reach out. So I just wanted to add that one piece, that there are some organizations, people that are already positioned to really make a difference. And if you fund those organizations, they can continue to address some of the concerns that we had here.
And not just funding, that's awesome, Marsha, thank you. And I was going to say that not just mentoring children, but mentoring parents, connecting with some of these young adults who need it. 30-second closure, and we are going to continue the dialogue after we close.
I would just like to thank everybody for coming out, listening to what we had to say, but more importantly, it's more about what you have to say and getting to resolutions and things that we can act upon. So we just need to make sure we touch base so I can look into a couple of those things that you were talking about.
Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure being here today.
The only thing I have in this world after the death of my son is my word. And I rely heavily on the relationships that I have built and the trust that I have built within my community. So the one thing I do is that I don't promise no one anything that I can't deliver. So if you have a child who needs someone to come seek out help, or someone who just take it down to the University of Delaware, he can just sit in my office and play games, I'll do that. But know that my resources are limited. But I am surrounded by a whole group of guys who is dedicated to making sure that we don't lose not every other black or brown or white child to these streets. And my thing is this right here in closing, is that we need to start getting serious about addressing some of the underlying issues that is forcing some of our kids to these streets right here. And I think that a call for action is upon us, and that we really need to get away from the me's and get with the we's. Because there's a culture in Wilmington, and people like to talk about it, is that the reason why a lot of people don't come together is because everybody wants to have their name in the lights. And we need to get away from that right there, because that right there is stopping us. Thank you all for coming up today.
That's a tough act to follow, so I'm just going to say thank you. If you, something you want me to know, something you want me to write, something you want me to send to the commission, let me know. I'm here and I'm willing to listen, so thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. And please continue to share your comments and network. Thank you. Connect with us, Movement for a Culture of Peace. And we hope to see you all on April 3rd. We have a website at our